I am Matermjen. I don't want to use the word founder member, but since you told me to write a designation, I have to write it. Otherwise, I don't have a designation. Yeah, I am from the Center for Indigenous Culture and Environmental Studies, based here in Nagaland. I am a made in Nagaland product. I studied here back in 2006. I graduated in 2006. Back then, this was our library, which I never visited. So it's an honor for me to enter this room for the first time after 16 years of leaving this college. So yeah, thank you for having me finally this room. I define the word traditional knowledge as living science. Usually I don't use the word traditional, I use the word indigenous because from a Naga perspective, we are indigenous people and everything is related to indigenous knowledge. And when I say indigenous knowledge, it is a living knowledge. People live the knowledge, they practice the knowledge. And that is why initially the documentation was not necessary. And that is why the oral tradition flew and flowed over time and ages. If I am to look back into history, then we will find that the Greek scholar Ptolemy mentioned about Nagas in 7 AD in Geography of Encyclopedia. Encyclopedia of Geography, sorry, mentioning that this area is, he referred to us as the realm of the naked. And so we are ancient people, more living in this land for 1,000 years. Some of us were asking last night about what is indigenous. This is indigenous. I belong to the tribe called Indigenous All Naga, and many of my friends are here. I will not call this necessarily a success story, but it is a presentation of one of my studies many years back, 6-7 years back. Initially, I wanted to present a paper on indigenous science, how indigenous knowledge is just not knowledge, but how we can reflect it as indigenous science. Today, we have discussed about weather predictions. Just because the method is different doesn't mean that one is ancient and one is scientific. Both are scientific in many aspects, and that is how we find this indigenous relevance in this current scientific and modernized age as well. And so I wanted to present on that, but since our theme is on aquatic ecosystem, I chose this paper, Ecological and Social Significance of CO. When I say social, it includes cultural aspect as well. And so, please, next slide. I have only 8 slides. If I include my thank you slide, it is 9. So please bear with me. So, ecological and social significance of community fishing. It is called CO in All Nagas. To give a brief description about All Nagas, they are settled in the western side of Nagaland. They encompass the region called Mokokchung district. And so it is quite fascinating to study. I am from this community, of course, and it is quite fascinating to study about my own people. We have 3 very different dialect language, I should say. One is the Chungli, the other is Mungsan, there is Chanki, and then there are village variations again. The Umma village speaks different, the Longmisa village speaks different, Longsa village speaks different. And so when I do this research, I become a linguist by virtue of my studies again. And so these Ao Nagas, when I mention the word Chio, some other village will pronounce it differently. They will say Chio. Likewise, other community, other villagers might call it different, but this is a term taken out from the common Chungli language called Chio. Next slide, please. So talking about the river ecosystem, the aquatic ecosystem, we will find that in the indigenous practices of the entire Naga community. When I talk about Naga community, it is the 14 distinct Naga tribes. We have 16 tribes recognized in Nagaland, but 2 are from other ethnic communities, that is the Kukis and the Kacharis. So among these 14 Naga tribes, there is utmost respect for river ecosystem in our cultural practices system, which is relevant and even found in Jung cultivation. Even during this Jung cultivation, they make sure that the river ecosystem is left untouched. You will find a proof of that in this picture. And so this river or streams were considered sacred to the extent that they worship this river ecosystem. And so we have this streams where they say that if we drink from this particular outlet, our sicknesses will be healed, diseases will be cured, etc. So many beliefs And still today, some villagers practice this. And so there's utmost respect for this river ecosystem. Next slide, please. And after this, I will come back to my actual presentation, that is Trio. Tzu means water in our dialect. Yok means release or liberate. When I say Tzu, some will say Chi. Uma villagers will say Ji again. Long Misao will say Jiao. These are all our language, but there is, I hope you can understand the variations. Mungsen will call Atse. I don't know what my Tanobo Amba Jamir will say in his own native village dialect, but I'm sure he will say Tse. So it means releasing, to liberate. So community fishing was not just a merry form of fishing like today we practice. It's not like, let's go for fishing today. Let's go for community fishing. Oh, a politician is coming, so let's go for community fishing. Now, this is the trend today. But this was not such back then in our indigenous communities. Next slide, please. Dr. Alino as well as Dr. Kafu have already touched a little bit on this community fishing yesterday, so I will not elaborate much on this on these things, but I will just cover some of the aspects which they failed to cover. So in this particular community fishing, every male above the age of 5 was mandatory to attend this community fishing. Above that means every male member who can walk. Now the feminists will ask me, what about the women? And so I am sorry, I'm not here to answer that, but I will try to cover a little bit of that as well. So every male community of the entire village is supposed to take part in this, and they camp according to their title. I belong to the title, the clan called Jamir, and so my camp will be different. The Pongan camp will be different. Likewise, there were separate camps, and they took part in this community fishing. When were this community fishing conducted, or when was this community fishing conducted? There were special occasions to conduct this community fishing. Of course, most of the villages do it annually. They practice it annually, but there are certain reasons to it. Some villages practice only once in 2 years, once in 3 years, some once in 5 years. When do they practice this community fishing is number one, when there is sickness or illness or natural calamities like drought or famine, etc. They practice this community fishing. To develop friendly relation with neighboring villages, which Dr. Alino already covered. During the change of guard in the village, the village system in this our community was governed by the Putumandan. Putumandan is for 30 years, and we argue that the oldest form of democracy existed in the indigenous community, and this Putumandan is one proof of this particular existence of democracy. It is a system where each and every clan was represented, devoid of majority or minority. And so we find political studies even in indigenous knowledge system. And so those were the reasons why this community fishing was practiced, not just to catch fishes for our consumption. Now the purpose, this is one of the modern form of community fishing. We don't have such clothes back then, so by the clothes that we are wearing, you will find that this is a modern form of community fishing. The one reason was, of course, to rebuild their relationship with the river ecosystem. How or why? Let me tell you this. Next slide, you can put forward. The purpose is, first and foremost, to cleanse oneself. Now we were enemies back then. And so, unlike today, we don't have all this spirituality, belief, Christianity, etc., etc. And so it was during this time that they go to the river, bath themselves, and cleanse themselves. Even today, this kind of tradition is found practicing in almost all the villages when somebody dies from my family members. After 3 days, 4 days, we go to the river. It is called Chokotu Kiawar or Tsukotu Kiawar, that is going to the river for cleansing. Even today, many of us practice that, of course, not with a firm belief or firm ritualistic things, but we do practice that. So first and foremost purpose was to cleanse oneself. The second was to discuss important issues or strategies for the whole year. And so we were headhunters. If at all we want to go for headhunting to a certain village, certain area during a particular during the coming particular year, then they will make a secret plot or idea strategies during this time. As I said, only the male members were present, so it was a good time to plot their ideas and strategies to rebuild the relationship with the river ecosystem. Very funny, but back then it was very valuable. Yeah. The third thing is invoke blessings from God and call upon the river to bring more fishes and aquatic lives so that the river remain a blessing to them. And so those were the purposes why they practice this community fishing. On top of all these things, the primary purpose was to appease their God and seek blessings from God. You are seeing this, many male members holding the sticks and beating them. They are categorized into different age groups. So based on our village system, we have different age groups. From 13 to 16 years, it is called the Sambhuzanga from my village aspect. That is, every village has different age group categories. And so this particular age group, the young age group, will lay down the big logs along the river. The next group will beat the sticks, etc., etc. There is excellent work division in this community fishing. Later on the third day, the women flocks will be allowed. After all this is done, the women folks will be allowed to come and gather the fishes, those that comes out after poisoning the river. So that is the reason, the purpose, the steps behind this community fishing among the all Nagas, and it also relate very much to the rest of the Naga tribes as well. So what were the plants that was used during this community fishing? You can show next slide. So these are a few of the plants that was used, very common to all of you. You guys know that one is called apudong, this is called sili in our own dialect. Root was used, entire plant was used next. So I have identified only 4 species that was used, and so these are the 4 different plants. And because these plants were very valuable to this community fishing, they dare not to cut this wood for firewood, especially. And so it kind of led the community to give some kind of species conservation or species protection to this community fishing. This schema walaji, it is Kohima Samsung. It is a very good firewood, and I was surprised to find out that certain village community use the bark of this tree for community fishing. I don't think many people Nagas also know that one, so I hope I am wrong, but yeah, it was new to me. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for your patience listening.